Good tea, by the way.
Oh, awesome. Glad you like it. It's yogi tea from Yoga West.
Nice.
I love it. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the 12th episode of the podcast, 12 Summers. Did I ever tell you why I call my podcast 12 Summers?
No, I was actually wondering that on the way over here because I was looking at the picture, the logo, the little fire.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's a context, and what it really is saying is that what I'm trying to express is that being a parent to a young kid may sometimes feel like a never-ending task, right? We kind of talked about it, right? Just a lot of work, and it's never ending. They're always needing something from you. They're always want your full attention. So it feels like never ending. But the truth is, you know, from speaking with other parents, we really just have about 12 years with them before they turn into that young adult, a teenager, right? They have that, you know, I don't want to listen to you attitude, and they're meant to do that, right? Because they need to become the adult they're supposed to be. And we have at most about that 12 years with that, you know, with that intimacy and the influence we have on them, you know, will be those beginning 10 years. Those will be the time that we have the most influence on them to teach them values and all that kind of stuff. So to put the numbers on there is important. It's not infinite amount of time. It's really just 12 summers. So that's why the podcast is called 12 Summers.
Yeah, you have a lot to... It's interesting because you say, you know, you have so much to do, you have so much to do. And then I hear parents say it all the time, when it's over, they kind of feel lost. Like, you know, because there's that sense, that empty nest they talk about when they leave the house. And when they... So I can only imagine. Yeah, after 12 years, all your rituals are there. Your bonding is there. Your connection's there. And then... You know, if they leave at 18, even those last few years, I guess in a sense, it's kind of rough if they're being distant and pulled away. But not all children are like that. So, something to contemplate. You gave me something to think about.
Yeah, and you know, so my son is 4 years old. My daughter is 1. So, and from my observation from my son especially, this little man, that his basic emotion is very similar to what I have or what we have as a grown-up. You know, there are two dominating emotion that he has. One is anger and one is fear. And like one day I was thinking about like, oh, he has so much, you know, like he's just 4 and he already has all these anger. You know, he's not, I think we're born with it, like born with these emotions and fear, right? Like you don't have to teach someone to fear something. He just sees something as like, oh, I don't want to do it, right? I never taught him, hey, that's dangerous, or, you know, if you fall, you're going to get injured. He just like, oh, I don't want to get up there. So, and I was contemplating about these two things, and I thought about you. I was like, oh, Brian, he has a company called Fearless Man.
Yes.
And you are just one of the best coach I know, like personally. You know, I mean, you personally helped me to grow and overcome some of my shortcomings. You know, so when I was thinking about it, I was like, hey, I want to talk to Brian about fear and anger, because now I'm a parent. I'm looking at these two things from a different angle, right? I used to be kind of experiencing that like myself, like I'm experiencing anger and fear. Now I'm looking at my son experiencing those, and I would like to learn more, you know. And I think all the listeners out there, like fathers with kids, they may want to know too. And additionally, I think, you know, a lot of fathers, they're my age, like 40 years old, right? And now we have kids, and we still want to do more, right? And there's still that fear. and you can understand, right? That fear it's kind of always there, right? So how do we kind of overcome this fear and go to the next level as a human being, right? As a business person to have more success. And I think it's all related. So I'm super excited that you agree to come to my show. It's such an honor. I feel really honored you made it. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I love, and by the way, I love, this is a real fire. It's not a recording. It sounds and feels amazing.
Yes.
We're actually sitting outside enjoying the fire. Emotions are something I spend a lot of time looking at and studying throughout my life because I was riddled with fear. As a child, I had so much fear that I didn't even want to go to school, to be honest. I wanted to go home all the time, and because I was just terrified to be out of the house. I was kind of on the border of agoraphobic. And I was super antisocial, and a lot of what Fearless created over the years was born out of the part of me that didn't want to live my whole life that way. And so when you ask this question, what is fear, what is anger, that's a topic I could talk about for hours, just those two subjects. But all emotion, to me, and Lester Levinson, who was a man who talked a lot about letting go and releasing years ago, and Lester used to call emotions just programs. His emotions are just programs. They don't. He says if they can come and go, they're not part of who you are. So if anger can come and go, then it's not you. Anything that can come and go and doesn't stay around isn't you ultimately. And this is a meditative concept, right? We can meditate on who am I? And then when you think, you have a thought, well, does that thought come and go? Then that thought can't be me. Well, then who am I? And you can keep doing this, and it takes you deeper and deeper into this state of inquiry. But if you go really deep into meditation, the deepest places of meditation, everybody who's experienced this knows, is peace. We just literally, when we drop beneath all the thinking as much as possible, which then slows down all the feeling and the emotions, we actually go into these really beautiful, blissful peace states. And I've experienced it many times throughout my life, and the more I meditate, the deeper I go into that. So the way I see emotion, fear and anger, is they're part of the human experience. If you believe there's a spiritual part of you and a human part of you, the emotions are part of the human experience. They're motivators, and they indicate how far out of alignment with something you want you are. So let's say as a child, I really want the cookie, okay? And I'm excited about having a cookie, and then mommy says I can't have a cookie. Then there's this sense of distance created from the cookie, which then causes me to drop more emotionally. Maybe first I try to get tricky to get the cookie, and I try to convince, and I push, and then eventually I start getting angry. And you're going to see the emotions get heavier and heavier. The more the child realizes he can't have the cookie, eventually the child, or human or adult, can't have what they want. Let's say they get angry, and then from anger they don't know what to do, and then they eventually get sad, and then they kind of shut down. Or then they eventually forget about it and go on and do something else. That's kind of that's the emotional, we call the emotional scale. Apathy, grief, fear, lust, anger, pride, courage, acceptance, love, peace. And each one is a little higher in feeling than the other one as you go up that scale. So to me, they have a certain purpose in our life as a human being. And if we look at it even a little layer deeper, and we look at fear, it's a major part of the ego. So let's say I was born and I was living in a tribe 1,000 years ago in a village, and anytime again I start, let's say I go venture farther and farther away from my village, and let's say I get into territory I've never been before, that might strike up fear in my body. That fear is then again the motivator to get me to go back to my known, so I stay safe. And it goes along with this same idea. The farther I get out of alignment with what I want, which is really to be home, to be safe, to be protected, the more these emotions start kicking up to motivate me to do something about it. And and with a child, it's much more primitive. It's much more simple. With a child, when you take a toy away from him, what he wants is that toy back. And if you put the toy away, the child's going to yell and scream. His emotions are going to drop. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's that the child is, again, he hasn't learned to control or channel or process those emotions. So he needs to learn to, in a sense, what he's doing is just through life experience. He's learning how this machine called human body works. Now, I'll add one more element to it. Hopefully I'm making sense here. If you have a hose, and I look at it this way. Remember I said the emotions are heavy to light? If you have a hose and the water's running freely through it, and the water's coming out the other end, and it's, you're watering the whole garden, and it's just flowing, and now imagine the hose, the water going through it represents the the feminine, all the emotions, all the feelings. And then imagine that the hose that channels the water is the masculine, it's the guiding force. Every time we squeeze on that part that channels and start to cut off all those emotions a little bit at a time, the pressure builds. And as the pressure builds, it gets more intense in there until eventually you shut it off completely. If you shut it off completely, that's akin to apathy. You see what I mean? Mm. And if I let it out a little bit more, then maybe it starts to rush a little bit, but it's fighting its way through, and that could be anger. And if I let it out a little more, then it starts to really flow, and that's equivalent to courage on that scale I talked about. And then if I completely let it go, it goes free again. Mm. And there's that sense of total flow state, and that's the peaceful part. And that's what we're doing all day long. We're trying to manipulate reality through emotions. And the eventual goal is to get it, for meditators, is to get beyond that process to where they stay in a peaceful state no matter what they're doing. Or if they do experience an emotion, it's like anger and sadness, they don't take it personal anymore. It's like, it's just a feeling. It's almost like, yeah, that's anger, and this is me. And I can have my anger, and then I can let it go. And then and so the anger doesn't stay around very long. Buddha said the source of all suffering was attachment. Mm. And so the attachment to that anger, I got to use this anger to get what I want. I got to use this anger, or the aversion to the anger. Anger's bad. I got to push it away, which is a reverse attachment, is what causes all the pain. Mm. Attachment to my grief. I got to analyze it and think about it and figure out why I have all these problems and why I'm so messed up in the head and so why I'm so, and that causes it to stick around, which through process of learning to let go and surrender and relax your mind, you actually learn to just let go of these emotions instead of sitting there trying to figure out why you have them and making them stick even deper and deeper and deeper in your subconscious. Am I making sense here?
Yeah, totally. I'm loving it.
Okay, good. I felt like I was going off on some tangents there, but I really believe in letting go by Lester Levinson's work on letting go. I love it. There's a guy named David Hawkins who a lot of people know. He wrote a book called Letting Go, and Hale Dwoskin wrote a book called Sedona Method, and they all come from Lester Levinson. He was the source of. He was a teacher to both of them, and an amazing. From everything I've studied on Lester, I think he was an amazing human being, and has really changed my life radically in that area.
What is his method of letting go emotions?
Really, it's welcoming and allowing, accepting the emotion the way it is. But the big problem with what I feel with the positive thinking movement is they deny what is. So if I'm angry and I say, I'm not angry, I'm happy. I'm happy. That's kind of the idea behind it. Nope, I'm happy. And what happens is the anger, because it's been denied, festers inside. It gets stronger. Mm-hmm. It's like, you got a wound. No, I don't have a wound. I'm fine. Don't even look at the wound. It's not there. And that wound is only going to get worse because you're not doing anything to deal with it. In Lester's work, you acknowledge the anger. You welcome the anger. You get comfortable with the anger. Mm. And you don't make it right or wrong. You remove all sense of right or wrong off the anger. It just is. It's an emotion. You just feel it. Big deal. You can handle it. You're a man. And when you do that once you actually start to get comfortable looking at it and feeling it, you can start to let it go. So then, can you let a little bit of that anger go? Can you let a little bit more? And can you let a little more? And then in time, if you can get 1% let go, you can get 100% let go. Because the 1% is like the little pinprick in the dam that's causing a leak that's eventually going to bust the whole dam down. And so I highly recommend the work. And a big part of it is developing a lot of emotional intelligence. What am I feeling in my body? So many people today have no idea what they're feeling in their bodies. And they're teaching their children to do that too. They have no sense of, they're sad and they're like, I'm not sad, I'm fine. I'm like, you can see it all over them. You're angry, and I'm not angry, I'm good. Well, okay, it's fine, but everybody around you can see you're angry. And especially with men today, it's a big problem with men denying all these emotions and feelings. We just don't want to feel. And because we're afraid of being that victim, right? And that's why Hawkins would say, this repressing of emotions is really common with men. It's a men's problem. And because what men learn is they say, okay, women want a guy who can feel and he's vulnerable, but the moment a guy's vulnerable, the women leave him, or they reject him, or they get mad at him. But what the men that are having that experience don't realize, it's not because they were vulnerable, it's because they were needy while being vulnerable. And there's a big distinction between owning your emotions. I'm sad right now, and I'm going to own it. I'm a man, I can handle it. And I'm sad right now, please fix me. I'm broken. I might be sad, and I'll say, give me a hug, I'm sad, I need to be held. That's okay. But I might be sad, and it's like, give me a hug, hold me, I'm so scared, take care of me, don't leave me, I could never live without you. That begging energy is what they don't like. And when we first start playing with it, we don't know I didn't know the difference between the two. I had to actually learn. And it's scary because it seems so obvious now.
Yeah, I feel like it's the journey from being a boy to a man. I mean, the boy is, now I'm watching my son. When he has like a big emotion coming out, mommy, take care of me, right? Because he doesn't really know what to do. And so going from that to owning your emotion is really a journey for a boy to become a man, in my opinion. And like actually having kid is helping me to owning my own emotions much better than before, because I was reading all these books, and one book written by a scientist, and he was talking about how do you get a child out of like a crazy tantrum, and it's just simply acknowledging his emotion, right? Because they're young and they might be experiencing an emotion they don't really know what it is. Maybe it's the first or second or third time they experience that emotion. They don't even know where it comes from. Just like hunger, like when you see a little baby, when they in the first couple months when they're hungry, they cry like the world is ending, right? The way my daughter cry is like her whole vocal like channel is open, and she cries like, help me, and now she's calming down because she knows, okay, she doesn't think that, but she's getting used to the emotion of hunger or a little fear. She's like, okay, no problem. Someone will take care of me. She's building that sense of security.
Yes.
So what I learned from the book is you gotta help your children label their emotions for them. If they're going through something, it's like, hey, you're frustrated. Right now, you're going through frustration. Like, okay, repeat after me. I am frustrated. And a lot of time when they do that, they calm down. Because they, now all of a sudden the thing they're feeling, they can't put a finger on it. Now they know, oh, that's called frustration. Or that's called anger. And I see my son and my calming down from just doing that many, many times. I mean, they're kids, they don't calm down immediately, but give them a couple minutes.
It's a beautiful process.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing there is, let's say that doesn't get done to the average child, and they grow up feeling an emotion, and we often identify with the emotion, right? We think we are the emotion unconsciously, even though we're an adult, we know better. There's a difference between I am experiencing anger and I am anger. And in the moment when you're completely identified with it, you feel like you are, in a sense, subconsciously kind of like anger. It's like an arm attached to your body. But in reality, what you're teaching the child to do is say, look, there's this thing called anger or frustration, and let's look at it from a distance, which then disidentifies it, right? And starts to say, oh, there's anger and there's me, or there's frustration and there's me. And then what that does, it allows them to be able to look at it like an observer perspective, like monks have been trying to do for years through meditation at your early age. Step back and start to process it and start to learn how to handle it.
Yeah.
Great process.
And from another book written by this FBI negotiator, I think he belonged to the Black Swan group, and he also talked about this kind of process in negotiation with like a kidnapper or like a bank robber. They're on a standoff, and he said the negotiator must create a connection between the negotiator and the kidnapper or bank robber by doing that, by labeling what they're experiencing right now, and that usually will calm them down. And even they know what you're doing, they will calm down.
Yeah, because it's just the effect it has on you.
Yeah.
It's basically what we're doing with releasing is we're welcoming all the emotions and starting to look at them objectively, and that allows. I liken it to like if you got everybody's got that closet at some point in their life that's so full of junk they don't want to look at, or a drawer or something, and you open it. Let's say it's a closet or a garage, because my mother always had that garage full of stuff, and it was just so much stuff. And you open it and you're like, dear God, you can't fit anything else in there, and it's going to be a nightmare to clean if you ever get around to it. And that's the stuff in your subconscious. That's the stuff buried inside you. And then you open that door to look at it, and it's so overwhelming because you've been storing stuff there for so many years. And here you are, you're teaching your son to start to clean it out at a young age, which is amazing because most parents back when didn't do that. So you open that closet, you open that garage, and you're like, oh, it's too much. Oh, look at all that. Oh, they get frustrated, they get angry because the distance, the time it's going to take to clean that up is so huge, it causes the emotions to crash, right? Because that emotional scale thing happens again. And then what do? You got a couple choices. You screw this, I'll go look at it another time. And you slam the door shut and lock it again, and I don't even want to see it. And I'm picturing, when we were young, we had a lock on the garage, and shut that thing again as quick as you can. Try to find that one box, shut it, and lock it again because you don't want to see it. And then the other one is we got to fix it. We got to fix this problem right now. And so they start ruffling through and throwing stuff out, and now they're throwing away stuff they need, and they're breaking things, and because they're frustrated and they're rushing. And then eventually stuff it all back in a bigger mess and lock it again. And when you disidentify with the emotions, which is what you're doing with the child at a young age, which is so great, but even as an adult, you got to open that garage and maybe just take a little time to not even clean it. Maybe the first day or first hour, you just look. Hour is probably better, but you walk around and you look, and you just kind of take inventory, and you get a feel for what's in there with no intent to get it done right now. Get used to seeing what you've buried. Don't make it wrong, don't make it right, don't make it good, don't make it bad. Don't become a victim to it. Let all that go. If you hear yourself starting to become a victim, watch that too. If you hear yourself starting to make it wrong, do that too. And then until you can settle down. And then you can start to be objective. Maybe I should keep this. Maybe I should throw that away. Maybe I should. And it's the same thing with the emotions. I'm going to welcome up this anger. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to welcome up the sadness. Okay, can I let some of that go? And I don't have to let it all go. Maybe I'll just let 5% go today. And then 2% more tomorrow. But in 30 days, that could be huge. Huge with the compounding of it. Huge. And that's what it really comes down to, is I'm not even looking for, I no longer look for big changes. I look for a little tiny change every day, consistently.
Just like losing weight.
Yeah. If you want it to be permanent, that's the way to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
If you want big change, you take drugs. I mean, overnight. Like, you go take Ritalin and Adderall or something like that, and that'll get you super focused overnight. But the downside is not worth it. It's not worth it to me. So, for me, it's about consistency. and 1% a day. Consistently changing 1% here, 1% there. Exercise. So I want to get that six-pack abs. That's how I'm going to do it.
I love that. I love that. I actually learned a lot from my own journey of losing weight. There's really no shortcut, you know. And the person, I mean, there are shortcuts, but the person who always take the shortcuts always get the way back, like in the exact amount of time. If you can lose 10 pounds in 20 days, you can, you gain 10 pounds in 20 days again, because the lack of discipline, the lack of committing to that, doing 1% a day.
Well, habits and behaviors haven't changed in 10 days.
Right.
They're all going to come right back, flooding back. Plus, the losing 10 pounds that fast is probably just water weight and not good for your body. And, I mean, do you want health or do you just want to be skinny?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everything is about consistency, ultimately. Right. I had two teachers once say to me, and they were really interesting because they contradicted each other, and I find really good teachers will often contradict each other. They're just looking at things from a different point of view. And one of my teachers, Carl, would, I'm going to say I said the wrong teacher. That's one of my main teachers, but one of my teachers, David, would say that you can have a change overnight. You can have a quantum leap. You could shift your whole life. And this other teacher I had, which I only had him for a short period of time, said he hates the quantum leap. He says this whole teaching of the quantum leap's got to go. Everything's done through consistency, through compounding interest. And I thought to myself, they're both amazing, super successful men, multimillionaires, both of them. How are they both right? Instead of saying one's right, one's wrong, how are they both right? Because could they both be right? And then as I looked deeper, I realized, well, the reason David says that is because his teacher challenged him to turn his yearly income into his monthly income in 30 days. And it took him a few months, but he did it. He turned his yearly income into his monthly income and never looked back, never went back. But the teacher also knew something else. He had done a lot of work, and his teacher knew he was ready for that big of a quantum leap. Whereas if you look at the other teacher, Jeff Olson was a teacher I learned a lot from. David Nagel was a direct mentor. He mentored me directly. Jeff Olson more indirectly. But what he did was he drew that compounding interest graph. And if you look at it, it looks like not much is happening, not much is happening, not much is happening. There's that rise up that's super fast. Like in 31 days, if you double a penny every day, you get over $10 million. And most of that money comes the last week of that graph. Well, I believe personally that's the key to all success, because there is a quantum leap at the end of that. It looks like nothing's happening, and then boom, like a rocket takes off into orbit, and that's what I believe David's teacher knew he was ready for. He was ready for that quantum leap. You could see it. He'd done all the work. It's time for you to shoot up and not look back. And we're going to push you and contain you until you do it. That's what his teacher's job was. And he had that exact shift. And so when I look around, I say that the quantum leap is possible, but it's going to happen naturally through compounding interest. You got to choose it, and then expect it, and then get out there and compound until it happens.
I love how you break it down. It makes so much sense. Yeah, because when you first talk about the two kind of opposite end on the spectrum, it's like, wait, how does that make sense? But now you put it, it's like, I get it. It really does. Makes sense.
I do that all the time now. I'll look at two great teachers who influenced the world, and I can see that there's total contradictions, but it's just limited. It's just words. It's the way they're looking at the thing, and so I'm very open to saying, how is this guy looking at it? How's this guy looking at it? If you blindfold 5 children and have them all go touch an elephant, they'll all describe something different. A tusk, a trunk, a foot, maybe a tail, but it's all the same elephant. They're just looking at it from different angles. And so I find myself contradicting myself now with clients. And the reason I'll do that is this client I can see this client's looking at this from this angle, and he needs this piece of advice, and that client's looking from this angle. So I'll almost tell them the opposite, because you have to, because you gotta come from their perspective. So
we kind of got out of touch for many years. But we stay kind of friends on Facebook, and I'm kind of observing you, for what you're doing. And like in these recent years, I feel like you're on your, I'm not sure if it's true, but I feel like you're on your quantum leap because you're producing a lot of good materials, good teachings, and you're active in different social media. You're always outputting some great materials. So
a lot of that's the team. I have a really good team around me now. Worked really hard to rebuild that. And how that happened was really interesting. After I met you, I took a year off, and there was a lot of stuff going on with my medically, and I needed to really take a look at that, my health. And so now I'm massively into health. I took that year off to really work on my stomach, to work on my gut issues, my inflammation issues, and all that kind of stuff, and really cleansed for a lot of that year. But the other thing I did, I didn't just cleanse physically, I cleansed mentally. I spent a lot of hours, meditating every day, doing releasing processes, and sometimes 5 hours a day, 8 hours a day. I would just be doing, the bulk of my day was that. And it was an amazing year. I needed it big time, because I just saw, after a while, when you spend that much time looking at your inner thoughts and your inner emotions, really is what I'm looking at, you start to see the limiting beliefs that hold you back and what you're capable of. They start to show up right in front of you after a while, because you just kind of welcoming them up. I talked about that welcoming process, and I keep welcoming them up, the next one, and then you get faster and faster at letting them go. And at the end of that year, everything took right back off again. As I started to step back into the coaching realm, I'd never seen everything start to take off so easily. Everything's like all this resistance left my body. And then the right partner showed up to help me build this, and the right person for that, and the right person for that. And now we have this huge team. We got a whole bunch of employees. And it's amazing to watch it all come together. And I look at it as Fearless was a child. And if I had stopped taking care of the child would have died. And you have to be there for it. But now the child is pretty much outgrowing me. if I left the child now, the child would be fine. It would keep going without me. Even though I'm the figurehead, there's already people replacing me. Other coaches starting to come up who are branding, and there's a lot of them could step in potentially in my place in a short period of time, if not now. And I think that's really what you need. If it's just about me, how does the work travel on beyond me when I die? And you were talking about parenting, and I imagine there's got to be a similar feeling in the parenting. Hopefully, everybody's child outlives them. That's the way it should be. And that child, and what I would love for my child is to carry on the best parts of me, and evolve the parts of me that he didn't work for him, and make him even better, and take it and do that with his children, and keep expanding everything, and that to me is like success right there, and that's success with the company. And the next generation of students, who knows what they'll be doing with it. So that's one thing I want to do. I want to start training coaches to coach. Like I have a guy who's just telling me the other day he's using the Fearless principles and teaching music right now, and I love it. And there's all kinds of different coaches that we're turning out that are going out into the world to do all kinds of different training programs. And so I want to create an official program for that, because we do coach in quite a unique way.
Beautiful. I love that. Just keep replacing yourself, so you keep going up. But keep replacing yourself, so your spot is filled. But
then you can also help more people. I can spend my time training the coaches, and the coaches can go out, and then vice versa. There'll be more layers. If I ever reach a point where I want to just stop, there'll be enough people out there that can continue to do it. Or if I get too old, or I pass away, or all these are real things.
Yes.
And people don't want to look at this stuff. I'm here. We're here to give back to the world ultimately, right?
I feel the spiritual part of you is much stronger than before. Has has something changed, or?
Yeah, with all that meditation, it can't not change. You, I used to wonder, and now it feels to me like everything is kind of fake. I mean, still, I take it very seriously, but I feel life is very temporal, and it's going to come and go, and that's part of the beauty of it. Is Zamparion always said that beauty is fleeting, and that's part of what makes it beautiful. Is it just comes and it goes like a flower. You get this beautiful flower, but it's delicate and it's fragile, and that's part of what makes it so beautiful. Well, life is the same way. It's this beautiful thing. We come in, we give our gift, and we move on, and that's part of the beauty of life. We go do something else, and I personally, from all that meditation, do not believe that consciousness ceases to exist. I think it actually probably in some way, shape, or form expands. When you go into these deep meditative states where your whole body, you just feel like everything is beautiful, and your body expands, and and your mind becomes so still, and you start to feel connected to everything, and you start to really think that you kind of look around at things, and they start to look different to you. They have a different texture or quality, and a different feeling. So, a lot more spiritual.
Yeah.
But I try not to be ungrounded about it. I want to be very grounded and connected to the earth and spirit. Like connected to my masculine and connected to my feminine, but really rooted to the earth, rooted to the ground. I guess like you would picture somebody who, lived off the land, versus somebody who's just going and meditating on opening their heart, which drives me nuts. I see that a lot. People who meditate on just opening their heart, and they become very ungrounded, and they don't have a sense of ability. As they become more and more open, they become very sensitive to emotion, because the more you open your heart, the more sensitive to emotion you are as you do these meditations. And then they don't know how to take care of themselves anymore because they're so sensitive. They become reactive to everything. Now, if they did it like the old school yogis did, they would learn to connect to the ground, their grounding, the earth. They'd feel everything beneath them. They'd feel supported by the earth. And then as they open their heart, it's just like having, in electronics, just having something that grounds everything out. It gives them a safe space to feel all those emotions and not get reacted to them, to be able to handle them all. And that's what we're so needing today in the spiritual part.
Yeah. One of my mentor told me, like, spirituality is really just your relationship with the universe. And I think you're having a beautiful relationship with the universe at this point.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. Like, I haven't seen you for a while, and today I see you, it's like, man, you feel different, and I like it. So I'm trying to figure out what happened to you,
I welcomed all the pain, that was buried inside me. Think about it when you're a little child, right? And let's say you're a little child and you're feeling everything. Matter of fact, you don't even know you're separate yet from the world. So you're grabbing your toes and you're figuring out, oh, this is a toe and that's a blank. And you start to get this sense you're separate, because you don't even realize it yet. It's just not part of you. And then you start to say, oh, there's me and there's there. That's when life starts to become scary, right? Because before there's a me and them, life's not as, there's certain things, but it's not as scary. But when you start to realize there's me, I can die, and there's the rest of the world, that's when life starts to get more scary for a child. Now, imagine that child is just fully expressing through his or her body, and they're just letting go, and they're flowing, and they're playing, and then how many ways does that child, through parenting, and this is not intentional, but do they learn to start shutting down some of that full expressiveness? And they almost have to, because they don't know how to control anything yet. So
they almost have to. I totally agree.
Yeah. There's this hose spraying everywhere. And if a parent comes home and teaches them to contain all that energy, that hose, those emotions, and start to direct them, that's going to create some limitations. It's going to build some kind of ego, but it's kind of needed for a while. Then as they become more conscious, they can start to learn to let it go. So just like learning dance steps, at first they're really contained and restrictive, and then eventually when you understand the feeling behind the dance, you can flow and be really expressive. Well, it's the same thing for this child. Now, this child's sitting there expressing freely, and let's say the parent comes home, and in this case, instead of giving constructive criticism, the parents had a bad day. And maybe the parents had many bad days, who knows? And then the parent yells at the child, screams at the child, because they got fired from work today and the child's making too much noise. And you can't be this carefree all the time, so life's serious and sometimes you have to work hard. And what does that do to that child? They were having this beautiful, peaceful emotion. And maybe they were in flow and enjoying their day, and then they get shamed or yelled at or attacked for that peaceful emotion. So then they associate that state of being carefree and open as bad. So now whenever they see somebody being carefree or they want to be carefree, what do they experience instead? Shame,
guilt.
Yeah. And they might carry that for years, and they might have that done to them a bunch of times to teach them how to control themselves. Matter of fact, I think the number one emotion that we use to train children to be who we want them to be is guilt. We use guilt all day long, Don't do that, that's bad. If you do that, that police officer will get mad at you. Don't do that, or that person over the counter, the lady behind the counter is going to yell at you. Don't do that because, and pretty soon the child's feeling all these constraints. And so the question is the child behaving out of guilt or out of love for being part of the community? Like, for example, I'll give you a better example of that one. The child steps off the curb to cross the street. Does he look around and look for cars coming and because out of guilt or out of love for his own body and wanting to protect it? There's two different energies at play there, right?
Yeah.
And one of them, a big one, is guilt. I don't want to make anybody mad. Am I breaking the rules? Is there a police officer going to see me cross? Am I in the crosswalk? And the other one is, no, I want to make sure everybody's safe and that I'm safe because I love my body and I love everybody. So I'm looking around and I'm glad there's a police officer over there because he can help people when they're stuck versus, oh my God, there's a cop. He might give me a ticket if I cross here. Do you feel the difference in those two?
I love the distinction, man.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And most people are running around filled with guilt all day long for everything they do. They bump into somebody in line by accident, immediately, I'm sorry, versus a calm, open-hearted, I'm sorry, because I care about you. It's more like I did something wrong. It's two different types of sorry. And I see it in people. I saw it in a cashier today. And the cashier kept apologizing. I was at Staples getting some stuff and kept apologizing to me for everything he was doing because it wasn't fast enough. He dropped something. I got to fix this. I got to put the key in the red. Oh, sorry about that. And I'm like, you really don't need to apologize this much. It's just, I don't care. And so we're so programmed with guilt. And that's the one thing we gotta. If we undo that, that can be huge.
Right. That makes me want to pay attention to how I interact with my children. I'm paying attention. But I think, when you first talk about guilt, it's like, okay, how, if someone is used to using guilt, which is a very effective tool to kind of control their kids' behavior.
Religion and government use a lot of it, right?
All the time. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And what do they do? What should they do? And you made it clear, right? Focus on, you can feel guilt or you can feel love, right? Love for your body, care for the people around you.
Love, appreciation, gratitude, these are all the higher emotions,
Right.
But if you teach people to use those to function, I don't know, it's like you can control people so much better if you embed them with a ton of guilt. And I don't know if society's intended to do that. Some people say that was the purpose. Church was to install a bunch of guilt. Maybe.
Uh-huh.
I don't really, or maybe that was just the only way they knew how to do it at that time.
Right. Right.
To keep unconscious people from killing and hurting each other. But we're becoming more conscious now. As a society, hopefully we're waking up. And
I think we are, I look at my parents' generation and now my son's generation. I was like, they're so fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many books out there, that study children's psychology and their study shows that like you shouldn't hit your children, right? I mean, I wish my mom read that book when I was younger, right? Because she will understand. It will actually hurt what she wants me to do, you know. Because now there's study that shows when you hit the child, their IQ actually drop like 4 to 5 points, right? And why would a parent want that? You want your kid to stay smart and paying attention so they can learn better. And now you hit them, then now they grow into this like guilt and shame, right? And stop learning, and stop receiving, stop feeling. But they didn't have that, right? Like any emotion out of me, they beat me out of it. Like emotion, let me beat you out.
Yeah.
Let me beat the emotion out of you, right?
Yeah, you're not supposed to don't feel an emotion.
Right, because they don't know what to do with it either.
Yeah.
Her generation, like their generation, they don't know what to do with that either.
And all that made sense to some degree. If you live in a primitive society where the world is rough and everything can kill you, and we got to keep you safe, we don't have time for this, right?
Right.
You know, but that's not what we live in anymore. And
Right.
I do believe that we are advancing in a lot of ways, you know, and consciousness is growing, and we're slowly growing out of that stuff, and that's the beauty of it. You know, I would love. It's going to be interesting to see the next few generations of children, because they're going in a lot of weird directions too. You know, you see a lot of, yeah. You know, you see a lot of entitlement behavior too, where the children today can be so entitled at the same time. So it can go in a lot of directions.
Where do you think that entitlement comes from?
You do need struggle in life. So I believe in struggle. I believe in discipline. I believe in initiation for boys.
Mm.
Like taking him into a tribe takes the boy into the woods, and he lives off the land for a month, and then he becomes a man, and he earns his right to be a man. What's he doing? He's facing his fear of death, and he's letting go of that fear of death and earning the right to be a man. Because as long as he's scared all the time, it's hard for him to fully be a man, because he can't go out and hunt and protect and build because he's too scared. You know, that's a boy still. And that's what I believe initiation rites were. Now, the way we handle it is really important. So the way I look at it is, are you teaching that child to face that challenge with courage and learning to really believe in himself, and even when he's scared, and seeing through the fear and saying, I can do it anyways? Or are you teaching that child to go through his fear because he's more terrified of you than the fear? Or teaching him just to numb out his emotions and go through it because you don't know any other way to do it? And so these are, you know, two different ways of handling discipline. And I think discipline's so important. The masculine energy, it can be done lovingly, or it can be done in a really unloving way. There's an interesting video on YouTube of a martial arts instructor working with a little boy.
Jason, I read his book.
Trying to break the board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a book called Cry Like a Man. That's him, right?
I don't know about the book. I'll have to read this book. I haven't read it. But
it's a pretty amazing book. Yeah.
The video, and I'll describe it for the listeners, and you tell me if this is it. But the little boy is trying to break a board, and he or somebody else is holding the board. I can't remember. And he can't break it. He's punching it over and over, and it won't break. And the little boy starts crying, and he's telling the little boy tells the little boy, it's okay, you can cry, go ahead and cry, but don't you give up, don't you stop, you know. And he finally breaks the board, and he's so proud of the little boy because the boy faced his own emotions, but he also didn't squash the boy's emotions. The boy handled himself. He did it himself. All the mentor did was be kind of a container for him to do that within, a support system. So what does that little boy learn from that one lesson, you know? He learns so much about life. It's super powerful.
Yeah, I love his video clips. He has some great stuff going on. Yeah. Exactly what we're talking about, initiating young men, fatherless young men into manhood. He's doing some great work.
And that's really what, to me, that's what it's about, yeah. Because we need to, we have all this toxic masculinity, which I don't like that term at all.
I hate it.
You can't create, and it's funny, people create this term toxic masculinity, and the moment you create that, you just expand that whole concept, which didn't even exist before, right? Because you focus on it. Then you create toxic femininity, which nobody talks about, but you can't create one without the other. That's the law of polarity. Yeah, it's a mess. And the masculine both the feminine and the masculine have a light and a dark side.
Yes.
And whichever wolf you feed is going to grow. And so let's feed the right wolf and stop telling everybody why they're wrong, guilting them and shaming them, and start telling people how they can be better and how they can be stronger and how they can be powerful just as they are.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about with all the social media, there is like a shaming culture going on, right? Like people like to shame people into submission, but it will never really change anyone's behavior in a significant way. It really just shut them down, but you really are not helping the person or helping the cause by shaming a group or a person. You really just make it worse.
Well, it's an interesting topic, because what about a really bad group that everybody agrees is bad? A group of neo-Nazis or Ku Klux Klan members. Do you shame them? And people would say, yeah, because you don't want them to keep doing that behavior. But the truth is if you shame it, it goes unconscious. Then it gets power by people being averse to it. Doesn't mean they stop feeling that way. Mm-hmm. They may walk out and say, no, I don't feel that way, but deep down inside, it's growing in them because they can't talk about it to anybody.
Right.
And there's this guy out there, and I haven't really studied him yet, but I want to study him. He is a black man that has converted either 200 or 300 men out of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh yeah, I heard about his story.
Yeah, it's amazing. He just goes and makes friends with them. He stops judging them. He doesn't make them wrong, and then they like him so much they quit.
Yeah,
that's the best. That's the perfect example of somebody doing it the right way.
Yes. And there's this woman. I think she's from that church, like Westboro, or where they always like hold a sign and it says like gay people will die or cursed by God. And she was doing that since she was a child, right? And thank God to Twitter. So she got on Twitter and spewed her poison on Twitter. And someone took the time and patience to really have a conversation with her. So eventually she got out of that church. And now she's telling people what she did wrong and why they were doing it, and it's such a beautiful lesson for everyone, and it really speaks to why the First Amendment is important. Let people express themselves, because when you stop talking or you start shaming people into submission, you really kill that possibility for people to change.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, I can learn, if somebody yells at me a slur and calls me a name, I can learn, my reaction tells me a lot about me inside too. If I take it really personal, there's a lot of growth for me there. Because a really confident individual, a solid individual like this, I can only imagine what this black man that's converting these Ku Klux Klan members out of the Klan has been called by them as he first meets them, how they talk to him, what they say. And how he handles it. It's an amazing thing that he has learned not to, most likely, I haven't read his story yet for anybody that's watching this. Actually, I'm going to go home and do that. But he has to not be taking it too personal.
Right.
And just being like, you know what? Because it's the only way he's going to get through all those walls. He's being the better man, and then they grow and meet him at his level versus him going down to their level.
Yes.
And most people go down to somebody's level to try to change them. It just doesn't work. I'm going to go meet anger with anger and try to change it. It's just going to increase. It's like two flames that are huge, filled with anger. They become one big flame. They just feed each other. That's a better way to put it. And end up in a big fight. So I definitely want to read that article. I can look at it. I've looked at it a bunch of times. I haven't read it, but I think about it all the time. So
yeah, they should definitely make it into like a documentary or didn't they have like a movie where this also like a cop, like black, and he kind of infiltrated this.
Yeah, just recently. Yeah. He was actually he did it on the phone, and then he had a white guy pretend to be him.
Right.
And it's based on a true story.
Yes.
Because it was the most bizarre thing in the world. When I heard it was a true story, I was like, come on,
Yeah.
this seems so crazy.
He got creative.
Yeah. He's like, oh, they want to meet me. Oh, what do I do?
That is so good. How did we get here?
Yeah, who knows? I like the extra wood, though. It's now warmer again.
Yeah. Put one more in there. Just for you.
Thank you. Yeah, watch that hand. Take it off. So what else do we want to talk about?
What kind of discipline are you on right now? I know you do meditation. You probably eat cleanly.
I do releasing, but I usually start with meditation, where instead of releasing on a goal, I release on just becoming present. I let go of all the emotions coming up, feelings, sensations, and I just sit until I'm in stillness, and I feel my whole body opening up, and I feel my heart touching the room, and then I'll start to take my goals and read them and release on any resistance to my goals. And then from there, I might even do a movement practice where I'll do basic movements, where I'll explore moving meditations, like find a part of my body that feels unconscious, and I'll move and explore that part of my body and learn more about what it's like to feel in that part of my body. It could be as much as a little toe. It could be as much as on my hips. It could be in my pelvis. It could be in my stomach. And so that's another thing I'll do. This week I've been doing a lot of meditations on welcoming and releasing resistance. Just resistance in general. Resistance to feeling more, resistance to life, resistance to action. And that's had a profound effect this week. It was really a beautiful process. But these are kind of my main processes. Now, as far as eating goes, I have been vegetarian for 5.5 years. I was, no longer.
Okay.
That was a long time ago, before I even met you. And then from there, I went into all different ways of eating. I tried fruitarian, then I tried eventually. I didn't know what to do, and I was trying to, get off sugars and everything. So I just lived on chicken and broccoli for a while. And
and broccoli.
Yeah, it was interesting. But then eventually I started learning more and more, and I became more paleo. And then eventually I became more keto. And then I did what's called FODMAPs keto, which was because I found out I had SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, and which meant my body couldn't digest a lot of vegetables. I was really having trouble with a lot of vegetables. And then I started hearing about the carnivore diet, and so I went that direction.
Jordan Peterson's daughter.
Yeah, all that stuff, and that's been the best for me so far.
Really?
I went on that, and I cut out all the vegetables and switched to internal organs.
Wow.
And grass-fed, free range for the most part, but then I still eat some non. But oh my God, I felt so much better.
Really?
Yeah, and that was.
You look good, man.
Thank you.
Wow.
And now I add back in what I don't add in vegetables. Now I add in. I do a lot of internal organs. I do beef every day, grass-fed preferably. I do. I'll do other meats too. I'll do salmon roe, and I do a lot of fats. So it's really fats, internal organs, then meat, and then and now I'm adding in more fermented. I'm starting to add in some fermented vegetables and fermented foods, things like this, and herbs, various herbs that can kill bad bacteria in the belly and things like this. And I just keep experimenting with it more and more. What are other forms of fats I can play with? What are there new types of internal organs? They used to gross me out. Now I find them fascinating.
What kind of organ do you eat?
Liver's the mainstay because liver's so healthy for you, especially if you get some good quality liver. It's got so many vitamins in it, but I've got supplements of all kinds, but I'm always wanting to try them too. And so the supplements are just desiccated, grass-fed internal organs from Ancestral Supplements, great company. So from them, I got heart, kidney, spleen, brain, lungs, pancreas, I even have some prostate I started taking recently, and
What's the benefit of eating a prostate?
to help your prostate,
Okay.
itself. I don't really have a problem with my prostate, but I had something called ICS, one of the conditions I had from having so many autoimmune disorders years ago, and interstitial cystitis, which feels like you have a bladder infection when you don't. You get tested and there's nothing there, and they call it autoimmune disorder. It's like IBS of the bladder.
I see.
Mostly women get it. For some reason, I got it. So I thought, I'm going to try these prostate and see what that does, and then I also I've taken a bunch of kidney too. And what I'm finding is that the more I do this every year that I'm doing this, the more things are healing on my body. I had a really bad varicose vein right here, and I was told that grass-fed lung helps with varicose veins. So for the first month I ate the grass-fed lung, this got so much better, like 50% better, and now I'd say it's 80% better.
Wow.
And it's healing up, and I always thought I was gonna have to have that surgically fixed, and just more and more things like this are happening.
I'm very fascinated by the diet you're taking on.
Yeah, and I've just been learning more and more about Weston A. Price. Do you know who Weston A. Price is? Weston A. Price was a doctor that lived in I believe the early 1900s, and what he did was he was a dentist actually, and he traveled to all these different places because he wanted to study the ancestral diet of these people, different people. And so he would go to all through England and Ireland, but all around the world, and he just would find people, and he'd look at the current people in the early 1900s eating that way, and the more standard westernized diets they had. He would find people, if he could, in remote areas that were on their more primitive native diets, and he would compare the two. And what he started to notice was the people that were still eating the primitive diets from before all had straight teeth and perfect jaws, and the people who were getting westernized diets were getting crooked teeth and cavities, and their jaws weren't forming as properly, and then he went back and looked at their bones of their ancestors, and he would get anywhere he could get the bones, and he would look at the bones, and he'd see again the structure in the bones of the farther back he went, the better it looked, the more they were on an ancestral diet. So he went around and just kept doing this everywhere, and then he started to ask, what do they eat? And they would all eat different foods in general, but they all basically got the same nutrients, is what he found. They all got certain set of vitamins, A, D, K, and through different foods, and a lot of animal foods. Typically there was fats, and every group had a different way of doing it. And it was fascinating to see that just westernizing their diet would destroy the teeth and the jaw and all that kind of stuff. So Weston was a big believer in old school nutrition. How do you use food to heal, and how do you get back to that ancestral set of nutrients that the ancestors really believed in? And so he did a lot of research, and there's still foundations around that work today, and a lot of the people I'm following now are really into that stuff. They're still studying how to eat beyond the carnivore. The carnivore is one level, but if you keep going on, in my opinion, we start looking at how did our ancestors cure the meats in a healthy way. So, because like the guy I'm studying now would say that our ancestors, their whole goal was to make the food easy for the human body to digest, so the body used as little enzyme and as little of its own energy as possible. So they would let the meat, cure as long as possible. They would ferment foods. They would they would never eat. They wouldn't just eat a bunch of plants off the tree unless it was processed in a certain way, right? Because the more fermentation, things like that, allowed it easy for the body to digest.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. They were showing this tribe taking a baked potato, and they would mash up the baked potato. Like they wouldn't just have a baked potato. They would take the potato, they'd heat it, cook it, mash it. Then they would mash it more until they got it into a mashed potato. And then eventually they put it into a soup, and they'd get it all soupy so it's easy to digest. Then the tribe walked around and spit in the soup, different members of the tribe, getting the amylase enzyme from their mouth into the potato, so it pre-breaks it down. So now when they eat it, the body does as little work as humanly possible.
Wow.
And it takes the nutrition right in. And if the elderly eat it in the tribe, it's super easy for them to eat. They can just eat it right up.
Wow.
Pretty cool, huh?
They kind of figured it out without modern science now,
Right.
how to break it down further.
We figure when you live, like here, if you lived out in the wild all day long working, probably the littlest adjustment to your diet, you're going to notice, you know?
Yeah.
They said that, we'll give you one more example. They were talking about the Eskimos, and the Eskimos would feed raw fish to the dogs, and then they would go out on dog sledding and come back, and the dogs would be okay, but they would lose some muscle from long treks. And so then they figured out they fed the dogs, probably accidentally, maybe on purpose, some rotted fish. I think it was it had rotted in a barrel and made it, and it rotted itself into a soup. The dogs came back stronger, not weaker, because the enzymes that broke it down made it super digestible. There was more nutrition, more bacteria, healthy bacteria. And then, so the Eskimos started doing that. They started getting into stuff called high meat, where they would pre-rot foods. This is so gross. They pre-rot these foods. I'm not going to do this until it stunk.
Hey, never say never.
No, that's right. And they would use it for medicine and all kinds. They cure illnesses with it, and supposedly they still do it today. So wild stuff like this.
Wow, I love it.
I'm fascinated by all this stuff because the more I heal my body and as I de-age my body, I just think that it's not that hard to heal your body if you learn about nutrition. But
yes,
most people don't, you know.
And most doctors don't know about nutrition.
They get like a class, 2 classes.
Right.
They get taught drugs, not
Yes,
nutrition.
drugs. Yeah.
But early doctors did. If you go back to around 1900, doctors were doing tons of nutritional experiments back then, and they were doing. There's a doctor, Darren Schmidt on YouTube. He's a chiropractor who studies nutrition heavily. He says all the early nutrition books, medical books, were so much more interesting than the stuff today. They would do, like, there's a guy named Pottinger, Dr. Pottinger, and he would take, and they would all do these different experiments. But he took cats, and he would feed cats like raw milk and pasteurized milk to see the difference in how they evolved. And then their babies would evolve and all that. And he'd see the ones on pasteurized milk would just fall apart. The ones on raw milk would flourish. And then we blame milk today for all these ailments. Like, milk's bad, but maybe it's the pasteurization. I don't know. You know, I only drink raw milk now. And
where do you get raw milk?
California, it's easy. There's just go down to here. I think Year One has it, but I'm not sure. But there's Rainbow Acres, any of the co-ops, Santa Monica Co-op, that they're going to have it. Whole Foods doesn't have it. And there's usually 2 brands. There's 2 brands in most of the fridges there. The best raw milk, they say, is right from the cow, of course. You know,
Right.
But still, you can get it. And then I make my own 24-hour fermented processed yogurt. Like, we'll take the raw milk and I'll put it in. I'll add yogurt culture to it and cook it for 24 hours and shoot the healthy bacteria through the roof, and then eat it for all
Does that
week.
become like kefir? Is that how you call it?
It's a yogurt.
Yogurt?
Kefir's a little bit more of a process. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so this guy Pottinger did this with the cats, and he figured out, you know, they would take out a vitamin out of their food and then breed them for a few generations and watch how they developed. And they put a vitamin in it, and they could see the effect it was having on different animals, you know, and on guinea pig, cats, rats, and they would start to test this stuff on humans and see the results it got. And so there was a thing called the raw milk cure. There's a book about that, where a lot of ailments back in the early 1900s were cured just by having a small glass of raw milk every 4 hours. And then and this one guy said, and some people listening to this podcast might disagree with me, that nobody's allergic to dairy, that if you have a problem with dairy, you have a bacteria in your gut. And you have some sort of bacteria that's not allowing you to digest it, and you need to kill that bacteria, and then you can get all the benefits from raw milk that, you know, because it has so many health benefits. And you know, I'm inclined to believe what he said is true, you know.
But you went through some of that process, right?
Yeah.
By kind of recreating your gut biome.
Yeah.
Well, what's your process? How did you kill the bacteria you don't want, or?
Well, the first thing I did was I stopped being in a rush to get it done. That was the first. It's like there's always like, I got to kill everything. And then what do? I get into a fight. I got to get this done now. I'm going to go into battle. I'm going to buy all these products. That's what I used to do. And then I realized, well, that's the wrong approach. The approach is, what my goal isn't to kill all the bad bacteria. It's to have a healthy gut. That's the real goal, to have a healthy, strong gut. So the first thing I did was I didn't detox the gut to kill anything. I mostly focused on how do I get it healthy. You know, that whole mindset was very different. And then the first step was, I think one of the healthiest things I did was I got all the way down to the carnivore diet. Because there's hardly, you know, for me, there's no toxic foods there. That's just easy to eat. All the inflammation comes out of your body. You feel good. You can go all the way down to steaks for a while if you want. And then from there, then I started adding in, once I felt good and better, I started adding in different herbs that would help to kill any bacteria in my gut. And I just try different herbs. I stopped trying to look for the perfect one, and I just did them on a daily basis for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I'd add in pau d'orco tea, pau d'orco pills. I would add in these other ones. I had all these different mixtures, a little bit of oil of oregano, and I had to mix it up. One day do this, one day do that, and I just saw it as part of my lifestyle now. I'm just going to constantly disinfect the gut a little bit, and then I'd put a lot of microbiome, and then once I'd done that for like a month, then I started adding in a little bit of raw honey, truly raw honey, like stuff that gets really hard, and I'd mix it with, like Ogenus Vanderplans talks about, I'd mix it with a little bit of raw butter or raw fat, and I eat just a little bit at a time because it's super killing the bad bacteria and super healthy. But anything that's been the pasteurized honey you don't want to touch. Started doing that on her. That helped me a lot. But I only started that, like I waited a bit. You know, I just did a lot of just the carnivore diet before I started any of this. And then from there, I started adding in more and more slowly, more and more fermented foods, like a little bit of fermented yogurt here and there. And then as I felt I could handle it, I'd add a little bit more. And, you know, it was a process. I mean, so I'm really kind of oversimplifying it, but it was these stages. There's a guy on the internet called the Heal Your Gut guy. Has a YouTube channel. He's a little strange.
They're all little strange, but they're really good.
Yeah, he's
they're
brilliant.
A little weird.
He's brilliant. But he's a little. At first, I didn't. At first, I didn't buy his product because I bought his online course, and I didn't buy it because I was like, I don't know. I think this guy's running a scam. And then one day I was like, why don't I just buy it? It's not that expensive. And he kept calling it an ebook, right? And I buy this ebook, and then he sends me the password and the login to his ebook, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then I go in, and it's a huge video course, like all these videos, endless videos, and I'm like, this is not an ebook, this is a giant course, and it was so much material I got. I was like, wow. So I was just going through that for days on end, learning about the ancestral diets and all this stuff. It was an amazing course. And then after I got through it, he updated and changed it all and made it even better and added more. And so he has a whole 5-step process for resealing and healing the gut. And because he had also a really bad colitis, and he was bleeding and all kinds of stuff. So.
Wow. And he got rid of all that by changing the diet.
Yeah, healing the diet, understanding how to use the herbs, how to use. His carnivore was the base, then the herbs and the honeys and the different things to come in and start to constantly disinfect and rebuild the gut. Plus nutrition, lots of nutrition, getting all your fat-soluble vitamins, your A, your D, your K, and as I learn more and more about vitamins, I like the importance of K in the diet is off the charts. Nobody hardly knows about K, especially K2. K1 is for blood clotting, but K2 actually tells the calcium to go into the bones. It's like the airport. I picture the guys at the airport with the lights telling the plane where to go. So all these women out there taking massive amounts of calcium, and D3 tells it to go into the intestines. K2 tells it to go into the bones. If they're deficient in D3 and or K2, where does that calcium go? It goes into joints. It goes into the heart. So people are thinking, I need more calcium because my bones I'm getting osteoporosis, and now I've got a heart condition. No, you probably need D3 and K2. Because the calcium is running amok through your body, and you keep taking these calcium. So this is one example of stuff I see these days.
I love that. I have a bottle of vitamin that's D3 and K2.
Good.
Jackpot.
Good. Yeah. Well, I had a lot of what felt like calcification in my neck, right? And I was always stretching it out, trying to open it up. And after taking lots of K2, D3, I feel it really opening up. Because supposedly it'll redirect that calcium back into the bones, And I don't know, it seems to be working for me. So
Do you go to like chiropractors or massage therapists?
I do a lot of massage. I really believe in it.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I haven't been to the chiropractor in a long time, but I have one chiropractor I really like, Michael Tebby. And I think he's fantastic. For adjustments, if you want to, he's not going to do nutrition. He's not going to do all the muscle testing. If you like all that stuff, that's not your guy. What Tebby does is he's a genius at giving you more range of mobility in your body. So he'll take your neck and he'll bend your head back at all these directions, and you'll see the exact range you have. Then he'll do some pops that are different than in normal chiropractic that I've seen, and next thing you know, your head can move so much more, and you're like, wow, feel the difference. You always walk out feeling the huge range of difference on the work he does, because he's done a lot of training on just that type of work. That's all he loves to do it. So big on mobility. So I love chiropractic. I mean, I love it all, man.
Yeah, no, I really believe health is the foundation of like everything we do. You know, I kind of pulled my back 3 weeks ago, and I basically couldn't do anything that I love doing. You know, I couldn't do yoga. I couldn't go to my martial art practice. I couldn't hold my child.
Yeah.
I couldn't put on my pants. And I just realized, man, like, we gotta take care of this body, you know.
Yep.
Like, I always know that, but it was a strong reminder that, man, you gotta take care of this body, because
it catches up too, right? You're 40 now, right?
I'm 42, man.
42. So
yeah.
If you don't take care of it now, there's old men at 50s and there's 50-year-old men that are young. There's old men like, I was looking at this guy the other day. He's 80 years old doing CrossFit, killing it. The guys in their 20s can't keep up with him, right? He's in New York. There's a YouTube video of him. Jacinto is his name. Jacinto CrossFit, 80-year-old, and they have a workout, the Jacinto workout that everybody does once a year on his birthday now, and a lot of people can't complete it, but he does every year, and this guy's killing it at 80, and it just, you know what? That's how I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be younger every year, and I'm gonna live fully, and because why do you want to walk around in a broken old body that can barely move when you don't need to?
Right, totally agree with that. Yeah. And I agree with you, you can actually grow younger if you do the right thing, eat better, exercise better,
and clean the mind out.
Yes.
I think cleaning the mind out is the number one thing, because if you don't clean the mind out, the motivation to keep exercising and eating right isn't there.
Right.
It's the thing that moves you in that direction, and it also causes all kinds of hormonal and endorphinal changes in the body that are just have endless benefits to your health. Mindset is everything. You know, getting up and enjoying your day has a lot to do with how you think and how you feel.
Yeah.
Big. That's why I do mind work. I see it as the most important piece.
I totally agree. How are we doing on time?
I have no idea.
I want to respect your
10:30. What time do we start?
I think we started around, let me see, hour and 20. About.
Do you want to go to an hour and a half, or what do you want to do? Do you feel complete now, or? You tell me.
Well, let's wrap up. I mean, let's 10 minutes. Let's kind of go through what we talk about today. I mean, we covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we did.
We went kind of everywhere, but they're all related.
Yeah.
Where do we go? I enjoyed the part where we talk about emotions and how that affect us, and there are different level of emotions, right? From like heavy to light, and you use the.
Well, there's a thing. This is the emotions are really important. I barely covered that, and that's probably one of my favorite topics. Is if you have the thought I don't like myself, and you have the feeling of let's say hate, for lack of a better, like you have an emotion hate, and I don't like myself. If you didn't have the emotion hate, and you thought I don't like myself, well, it would have any impact on you. None. It would float away, right? Unless you kept saying it over and over, trying to find that emotion, it's just going to float away. So in reality, what releasing is about is not about managing the thoughts, but getting in touch with the emotions driving the thoughts and learning to let them go on a consistent daily basis. Constantly letting them go back up, not making them wrong. I'm angry. Okay, welcome it, process it, let it go. And then eventually what happens is you start living more and more in a peaceful, calm, it's like the world gets magical, man, as you get really good at that. And if I tell the story of Lester, this is why it's so important, is Lester was sent home from the doctor to die. He was told he had a medical, basically he had, I think he had thrombosis in his heart, he had all kinds of stuff going on. It was like around 1950 or so. He was 41 years old, and they told him, get your things in order, you're going to die really soon, you don't have much longer to live. And he got home and he thought to himself, I've been miserable most of my life. I've tried to start all these businesses, I've pushed myself, nothing's worked. What if I just, what if I only have a little bit to live? What if I just worked on, he thought, what do I most want? What do I most want before I die? He says, I want to be happy. And that's all he thought, I want to be happy. So he said, well, what is happiness? And he threw out all his books because he realized none of these books had helped him. And he thought to himself, what is happiness? He goes, well, when have I ever felt happy in my life? And he remembered two memories of feeling happy. One was first one he remembered was when he was loved by this girl. And then he said, but that's fleeting, because when she stopped loving me, it went away. And he said, but I had more control when I was being loving. When I loved her, I was happy, and I had control over that. So he assumed that happiness was love, loving other people. Then he said, okay, when else have I loved somebody else? And he thought of his friend who helped set up his tent, and he was young, and they were going camping, and they set up this tent, and they talked. He said it was one of the most beautiful afternoons of his life, hanging out with his buddy. And he says it was a very loving moment, and he goes, that made me feel really happy. So he set out on a goal, because he was dying, nonstop, 24 hours a day, welcoming every emotion and releasing it into love. And so he started with the first one, and the first one was in reality, before he set the goal, this is what he did first. He welcomed the memory of the doctor sending him home to die, and he said he had so much anger, and all this rage towards the doctor. And he welcomed that memory, and he asked himself, he said, can I take this rage or this hate or whatever he was feeling at that moment, and can I change it to love? And he said his body rebelled, and his mind didn't like it, and he just made a deal with his mind. I said, can you just set this aside for a moment and try this and see what happens? Wow. And then what happened, he said, was he had this really weird sensation, and suddenly something shifted, and suddenly he goes, I didn't feel love for the doctor, but I didn't feel all the rage and anger I felt. What I felt now was a resentment. It was lighter. So I said, can I change this resentment to love? And boom, he said it shifted all the way to love. And suddenly I felt this peace towards the doctor. And the way I remembered him, is what he said in the book I was reading, is the way I remembered him telling me to go home. I took it as he didn't like me. So I took it really personal. But now my memory had changed, and I saw him in a whole new light. He was like he was just lost. He didn't know what else to do with me. And I was the difficult one. So he said, at that point, he just set out, welcoming every emotion he could, learning about emotions, feeling the emotions, welcoming them, and seeing if he could slowly switch them to love. And every memory from his life, every person he talked to that he could remember that he had any conflict with, until he started to feel better and better. And his body started healing. And he actually lived to be almost 90. He didn't go back to the doctor. He just started healing. And he said he did it nonstop, 24. He'd fall asleep in his lounge chair get back up, do it some more, and get back. And then he started taking walks in New York, all through New York. And anything that upset him while he was walking around New York, he would do it the same process till he was over it. And he'd do it again and again. 3 months later, he was what people today, I guess, would call, or back then would call, enlightened. And he was just been living in bliss and enjoying life and teaching people, and his whole life changed. So I didn't mean to tell that whole long-winded story, but I wanted to show the power of shifting your emotions, and learning that it's really about welcoming and learning not to take your emotions personal anymore, not making them right or wrong, not making them good or bad, not getting attached or averse to them, just because they cycle out so fast when you do that.
I remember many years ago, you said something, maybe I made this up, but according to my memory, you said, underneath all your emotions is love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that something you said? I think so.
I don't know if I said it, but it sounds like something I would say back then.
Yeah.
You know, because if you again, if I meditate and I go into a deep state of meditation, it's all. If I can shut down the ego for the most part, that's what I'm going to experience: bliss, love, peace, joy. And if that's what's under the ego, that's what's under the ego. And countless meditators have experienced that. Countless. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's pretty awesome. And you feel like you're one with everything, you know, and that's the beauty of it. Because we are.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. We just don't know it. And by the way, I've done tons and endless hours of releasing myself, and I said this earlier in the call, and I've watched magic happen in my life when I do it. You know, solutions to problems I didn't think had solutions, realizations, healings in my own body. I do a bunch of releasing, and then suddenly the right answer or the right tool or the right something shows up because I get out of my own way and I create space.
Is there somewhere or people can learn more about this, about releasing, how to do it?
Go to lettinggo.com, David Hawkins. Not lettinggo.com. What did I come up with? Letting Go is the book. The book title is Letting Go.
Okay.
And it's written by somebody named David Hawkins. It's a great book. Sedona Method by Hale Dwoskin, Dwoskin. Another great book. And they're both taught the same teachings, taught from different perspectives. Different teachers, different perspectives, all taught. They were both taught by Lester. Over at thefearlessman.com, we have releasing workshops. We teach to our students that go really in depth and do a lot of work. And we have our own way of doing it. Energetic modeling, energetic embodiment is really what it is. It's a little different. And we get heavy into embodiment principles, feeling through your whole body, learning to feel your whole body, and then applying the processes to that. Another great way to do it. Maybe someday I'll write a book on that. I should.
You should.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about it today. It was like, Brian should write a book. I mean,
I got a lot of books I want to write.
Yeah, started with just one.
Oh, we have one ebook out there. Wrote it with Robbie many years ago. Have another book on the way. It's going to be a short one. Working on that right now. It's just going to be more like a giveaway of masculine principles. That's coming soon.
Love it.
And
where can we get it?
Just go to the website,
Okay.
or sign up for the email list, thefearlessman.com, or and when it comes out, we'll put it on the email list. I'm pretty sure we're just going to give that one away, and then I'll make a bigger one of that. They'll probably be more structured, but it'll all be all about the masculine principles: grounding, containing, penetrating, leading, how to embody it in your body, how to use these principles to take you further in life, how to develop them more inside yourself, how to use them with people on the street in a solid way, and I've been studying that stuff for years. So, and everything we do is about how do you embody it, not just how do we talk about it, how do you actually experience it, how do you get it in your nervous system, and that's what it's really about.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
How do people find you on the internet?
Yeah, thefearlessman.com, or if you want to check out videos and learn more, where I talk about specific topics, it's youtube.com/thefearlessman. Those are probably the two best resources, and there's tons of content on there, and there's more going up all the time. And we're really responsive to the comment section of the videos, so if you got any questions, feel free to put comments in the videos, and then I think there's a blog attached to the website, so if you'd like to read written stuff, there's a lot of written stuff on there, and endless material.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing videos and articles on your website, man. I truly enjoy them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we love doing it. It's my life's calling, man.
Amazing work, man. Such an honor to have you today.
Honor to be here. I really enjoyed this fire and the tea. And your backyard's awesome.
Hey, let's do it again, man.
Yeah. Anytime, just let me know.
Awesome.
As long as I'm in the U.S. I'm on the road a lot, so. Miami next week.
All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much, and such a pleasure talking to you. And till next time.
Until next time. It was a pleasure being here.